VikesNow. I am Dustin Baker. We're here to talk about the 7-2 Vikings, which if I would have told you this on August 10th, for example, you'd be elated that the Vikings are 7-2. But after today's win, which felt like another greasy one, we're like, all right, yeah, I can work with this. But I'm here on Vikes Now to get some reaction from a litany of folks. We think about three others joining, maybe just two. We shall see. But Dakota, you're up first to react to the Vikings. Let's see. What, 12-7 was all said and done? The Parker Romo game.
This is the first game, I believe, since 2006 that a team has won a game with three or more interceptions and no touchdowns. So shout out to the Minnesota Vikings for once again making bizarre NFL history. You know, Offense definitely left a lot out there on the field. I do want to give a shout out to Sam Darnold, which I know people are not going to appreciate, but the fact that he was very self-aware in his press conference and was like, yeah, like I definitely need to have a better pocket presence. I need to have better downfield awareness. I need to do better. I need to watch the film and see what I missed. I appreciated that kind of openness and honesty from a quarterback. I love that he is well aware of his mistakes. But what I love the most is Kevin O'Connell's confidence in him regardless and how this team stands behind Sam Darnold. But I will say that that defense is alive. It is well. We've been looking for them. They are back. They definitely lost some confidence after the Lions game, and I think they have slowly gotten it back, but I think they were in full force today. Shout out to Cam Bynum and that amazing celebration. Um, I'm glad that the kicking issues did not come back up. I'm glad that Parker Romo, of course, knock on wood, but I'm glad that Parker Romo or the Jason clone, as he's being called, or Jason's twin, as he's being called on Twitter, um, is, just as good as Will the Thrill. I'm glad to see that we don't have to be too concerned while Will and Andrew are recovering from their injuries on IR.
So my first reaction throughout the game, heading into halftime, was okay. This feels just like last week, where we feel like we should have the lead, but we don't. But then the second half wasn't as impressive as last week, and then I was like, you know what? This just feels like it's a Bears game at Soldier Field with all of this messiness and just the way it was going. But then I settled on it feeling like the Raiders game last year, where it
Mm.
was oddly satisfying that they found a way to win, even though it wasn't at all fun to watch. I swear it felt like that game lasted 8 hours. I don't know what it was about it. I kept looking at my phone, being like, God, is it 4 p.m.? Like, are we over by an hour? But no, it was right on schedule. So those were my immediate thoughts about that style of game. Tyler, you're back in the saddle. You've kind of had a hiatus moving. How are you, man? Oh, you don't have any audio. We don't have any audio for you, sir.
Oh no.
It's all good. He's going to return. All right, Dakota, I'm going to get back to you before we get Tyler's generalized reaction. So we're supposed to be right in the middle of the easy part of the schedule. Are you, after watching today's game, are you worried about the Titans next weekend?
No, absolutely not. I I'm worried about our offense, absolutely, but with the way that the defense showed up, I don't see why we can't win that game. Obviously, it puts a lot of pressure on our defense to continue to outperform. Not that I think they'll have any issues with it, but I think in order to convincingly win the game, I think that we will win against the Titans no matter what. But in order to convincingly win that game, we 100% have to have our offense back into the full swing of things. They need to be back being able to communicate to one another. Sam Darnold needs to stop seeing ghosts or whatever he is seeing out there. And it is the easy part of the schedule. You're right. However, so far this season, a couple of the easy games haven't been so easy.
Mhm.
And I think it really just comes down to treating every single game like it is the tougher part of our schedule. And ultimately, with the way that Kevin O'Connell called today's game, I'm not worried. My only concern is maybe Sam Darnold, but I think he'll learn from this and I think he'll bounce back and be better next week.
One thing that kind of gets on my nerves, and I know that this is kind of a house money season because we didn't expect much. Well, Dakota, you did, but a lot of us thought 7 and 10, 8 and 9. Is there's always something wrong? Like against the Rams, the defense didn't show up. Last week, the kicker missed two field goals. This week, Darnold can't stop throwing interceptions. Like in the month of September, everything was clicking on all cylinders. We had very few grievances, and I really wish we could get back to that. I'm sick of one thing being off, and
Yeah.
today was a monster thing in Darnold. Tyler, let's do another audio check. Are you there, sir?
Shaking off the rust, Dustin. How are you?
Not bad. Let's go back. I'll get to you about Tennessee momentarily, but we got to hear, since we haven't heard your voice in a long time. Tell me
I
about
know.
how you reacted to this, what I call greasy win over the Jaguars.
Greasy win. Yeah, it's the ultimate a win is a win sort of win. And I thought we had that last week against the Colts where we just said after the game, you know what? It was ugly. A win's a win. They'll fix it next week, right? That's what I was saying last week. This game sucked. Like I was at Beef of Brady's with a friend of mine, and it was just not a good watch. Um, Parker Romo, shout out to him. He carried our team. One of the big questions for me entering this game was like, how would our kicking unit look? New long snapper, new kicker. They held it down.
Mhm.
Respect to them. They were the only ones who really showed up. Obviously the defense was there, but like special teams, but they're scoring points. So the rest of our offense just, I don't know, they could get a million yards and not convert in the red zone, turnovers. It was a crummy game, and I feel like we played down to our opponent. And I am a bit worried about, you know, going forward with this offense, mainly because I think the reason Sam Darnold is struggling is because he doesn't have Christian Darrisaw out there. So any semblance of pressure is just going to rattle him more. Like the seeing ghosts thing wasn't a complete myth in New York. And when you don't have a star left tackle, you have an average left tackle now. And I think that's a bit of an adjustment. So there's gonna be times where there's pressure, and he's done a good job, using his mobility to get out of it. But when he's throwing in the pocket and there's pressure, there needs to be more poise, more confidence. It just felt like he was rattled by the Jaguars defense, and they're not even like a good defense. They're not even a good
Horrible
team.
defense
Yeah, they're horrible. So
by the
it's
numbers.
not that this was a playoff season, expectation wise prior to the year, but we have a wild card spot as it is for the time being. And I look at this team and I feel like this is a really fun regular season team with Sam Darnold, but a one and done in the playoffs right now. If you asked me if the season ended today, how things would turn out, I'm not sure if we could beat like Atlanta or Detroit or whoever we match up with. I just don't see it.
So I want to give a shout out to TJ Hawkinson as well, because I will tell you, if this game had transpired in the month of October, they would not have won this. Somehow, this terrible by the numbers Jaguars defense figured out a way to contain Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. And this is why you pay Hawkinson the big bucks, for kind of like mundane third down, small third down catches. He kept moving the sticks, and without him, even though Josh Oliver has weirdly emerged, to me, Hawkinson was the guy that kept the offense moving at all times. You talked about, you actually stole one of my questions, Tyler. So I'm going to toss it over to Tyler, or excuse me, Dakota, and then I'll get a little bit more clarity from you, Tyler. We talked about next week, Dakota, on the Titans. Doesn't seem like you're too worried. We think they'll play Will Levis at quarterback. Predict how this season ends for me, Dakota. Hopefully it's not in the regular season. Give me what do you see? Is it the second round of the postseason against the blah blah blahs? Tell me what the final game of the Vikings is for this season and how it ends, based on what you've seen through 9 games.
It's really, really interesting because everyone called me crazy saying that at the end of this season we would be 13 and 2 or 13 and 4, excuse me, which I've recently adjusted to 14 and 3, which seems a little bit more likely now, to be quite honest. Maybe not so much to some people, but I'm holding on hope. I think we make the playoffs. I don't have a lot of confidence in the Packers. I don't. I've been saying from off season that this was going to be a tight division and that it was going to come down to second place. Though given the way the Lions are performing, maybe first place is still available. Who knows? I see us if things continue to trend the way that they're trending in regards to how we're getting our wins, and if we were to start the preseason today, I do think we could take down the Falcons. I am a longtime avid Kirk Cousins fan,
Mhm.
and we saw classic Kirk Cousins today against the Saints. And in my honesty, in my wholehearted honesty, I do believe that we could beat the Kirk Cousins Falcons. I genuinely do. I think Kevin O'Connell knows Kirk Cousins better than Kirk Cousins knows Kevin O'Connell. And so I think we could design a perfect defense to go up against him and frustrate him, get him emotional, and ultimately win that game. If the second round comes down to, oh gosh, just like picking off the top of my head, the Seahawks, I think we could take that. I think we could take the Seahawks, but if it comes down to third round Detroit Lions, I think we're losing. Ultimately, I do think that this Vikings team, especially the way that the defense works, I do think that we could make a legit run. Super Bowl bound, that's an entirely different question. But I think we could go deep into the playoffs based on how well this defense plays and if Sam Darnold shows back up.
Yeah,
The
I
half season,
I
Sam
keep
Darnold, of course.
I keep having a poetic vision of playing the Falcons in the postseason. So my official prediction right now is, well, let's get this out of the way. They're gonna have to finish 1-7 or 2-6 to miss the playoffs, and and that would be extraordinary collapse. So I think they'll get the Falcons number in round one. I think they'll beat them, and then probably go on the road to lose at the 49ers or something like that. That's how I see it right now. Tyler, you said this kind of feels like a one and done to you. If you want to stick with that, who did they lose to?
Um, I don't know. Seeding what? We play Atlanta right now. I don't even know
I
what
think
the playoff
it
picture.
was the Cardinals heading into this week, so probably still the Cardinals.
Cardinals. Um, okay, we can beat the Cardinals. I my biggest concern with this team in a playoff setting is Sam Darnold's turnovers. So I don't know what the Cardinals' defensive rank is, but I don't think it's that good. I could be wrong, but they've never seemed like a very stout defensive team to me over the past couple of years. I look at Detroit and, Atlanta's defenses, and that would be tough for Darnold. But if we're playing one of those teams that, wants to beat you, just by throwing it a million times and scoring, he has a better shot against that style of a team versus a team that's just gonna make life difficult on him defensively.
The Cardinals ranked 26th per defensive EPA per play.
Oh,
So,
Oh yeah,
but I caught
he'll
the Jaguars were 32nd in the same metric, and they didn't seem abysmal. Brevan, if your camera's right side up, I can't tell if you are or not. Are you there, sir? There you go. Unmute and say hi to us.
Hi, sorry, Sam Darnold was driving me on the way to the show, and my route got intercepted. So,
Give
uh,
me
oh my God.
so we've gone through some reaction stuff. We peeked ahead a little bit the Titans. Let's hear from you. This 12-7 win. What say you?
oh man, I'm sure you guys have already talked about it, but I'm really glad that Kevin O'Connell went to Wendy's and got himself a small bacon cheeseburger, a small order of fries, a small order of chicken nuggets, and a small value drink because John Parker Roma went 4-4 today. So that's other than the defense, that's my positive, and I'm liking this John Parker, no Romo. So that's my positive, and the negative there's a lot of that I'm sure you guys have covered. Yeah, and you guys are kind of talking about it just now, just the fact that the offense couldn't get going against the defense as abysmal as Jacksonville, which any given Sunday, you're playing an NFL team, no matter what, it's going to be tough, but um, not the aesthetic that I wanted to see because I keep predicting. I'm sorry to everybody out there. I keep predicting the Vikings to blow somebody out. My bad. Instead, they're going to go score 12 points off field goals against the Jaguars in a game they should blow them out. But as the season rolls on, you find out more and more who you are. And maybe the Vikings are still as good as that team that we saw in the first 4 weeks when they were blowing good teams out, but um, we didn't see that today. So against the Jaguars, not trying to be pessimistic, I did say there would be an eventual Sam Darnold falling back to earth. As much as good as he looked, and as much as I wanted to be hopeful that he wasn't the Sam Darnold that we know, I still think he's a little bit better than the Sam Darnold that we grew accustomed to when he was New York and Carolina and everything. But just not a win's a win. I'll tell myself that to cope. I think the 2022 Vikings showed their head, reared their weary head today. It just felt like a game straight out of 2022 with the
Brevan,
close at the end. And
what will the final game of this season look like? Hopefully sometime in January, February, January.
what will the last game look like?
Yeah, who'd they play? And I'm guessing they lose to somebody. Who is it?
Oh boy, I'm really scared that it's going to be Detroit, because even though Detroit's not putting on a great performance now, Detroit, like, they're still going to be the team to beat up. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we've all kind of agreed, pending San Fran finally showing up, that Detroit's the team to beat in the NFC. But it's looking like it's going to line up that things keep going the way they're going. We see Washington or Atlanta around one of the playoffs, which storylines galore with Atlanta. I'd have no excuse to not go to the Washington game because I'm an hour away from that shithole of a stadium. So I think you can beat either one of those teams, truthfully, if you get back on track. If I had gun to my head, last game of the season would be probably losing to Detroit at Ford Field in the divisional round.
Okay. All right, let's spend the last 8-10 minutes on Darnold, because that's the most important topic and very apropos. Brevan's probably heard me give this speech about 100 times by now. When I turn on a Vikings football game or I go to the home game, never once since the guy signed in March did I expect Sam Darnold to become this elite guy. Even in September when he was cooking, I was really excited, saying, God, if this defense can continue, this could be something really special. But when I watch his football games, I never look at him through a lens of, oh my God, O'Connell has polished him. Now he's a top 5 guy. I never, ever feel that way about him. So when he does stupid shit, I'm like, yep, that's going to happen. I don't let it sink. And he's not paid 40-45 million like Kirk is. So we can't really get so mad at him. Like, he is a bridge solution. And I would tell any viewer of this show and any viewer of Vikings football, when you watch Darnold, it's okay to be pissed about 3 picks. I mean, that was dastardly. But the guy is not going to suddenly be this almighty, good all the time guy. You have to have a really good defense to accompany somebody like him. And so that's why I'm never too hard on him. If they had never drafted J.J. McCarthy and he was their solution, I would be very upset. And to B, yes, I would be mad. But to me, he's just a stepping stone to get the J.J. McCarthy. And I've said that consistently. And I do like the guy. I never get too low on him. I get high in the actual moment of a touchdown pass, but I'm never like, oh God, now look what Darnold did. I expect him to do that shit because he's Sam Darnold. So that's where I'm at. I think that he'll recover and not have 3 picks in the red zone again. Almost had 4 in general before that chaotic shit came back. Dakota, we need a Darnold speech from you.
Listen, I said on TikTok way back in March, I was not mad about Sam Darnold being picked up, especially when I was one of the only people at the time on the JJ McCarthy hype train, or at least here on VikesNow minus Thor. I was not mad about it. I saw the vision. I still see the vision. I am not one of those people who thinks that we should sign him for a 2, 3, 4, 5 year deal, because I mean, that is what the Vikings of the past have done. They have gotten themselves stuck in these situations with these for football mid-age quarterbacks, except I think Sam Darnold is the same age as me, so take that with a grain of salt. But we have gotten in the past ourselves stuck in these situations with these mid quarterbacks and these high contracts because we stick with what is familiar with this. And I have said this from preseason. I have said this up until today, and I will continue to say that this is not your grandpa's Minnesota Vikings. It's just not. The Kevin O'Connell Kwesi camp is not going to let themselves get stuck in the sins of the past like the other eras before it. And I think to have the idea that we're going to do anything other than JJ McCarthy is crazy. I do genuinely think that Sam Darnold is going to bounce back. If Kevin O'Connell has the same amount of confidence in him than as he has all season, then why should I falter? Absolutely, there were multiple times today where I'm like, Sam, what the fuck are you doing? And I was delusional thinking that I could do better. But Kevin O'Connell has led quarterbacks to win games, and those quarterbacks don't even know the playbook. He's led this team to win using 2, 3 quarterbacks a game. And to me, it's just we're in the middle of the season. We saw an insane amount of shit happen today from the Lions currently losing 13-23. By the way, Sam Laporta just left the game with an injury. We have seen so many random things happen this week that I think Sam Darnold regressing for 1 week, maybe 2 if you consider last week as well, isn't the end of the world. We're getting to that part in the league where, yes, obviously teams are going to show who they are, which is why I believe that the Chiefs will not make the Super Bowl this year, but that's a conversation for another day. But we're also at the part of the league where people are getting tired, especially when you consider how early we took our bye, when you consider how early the Lions took their bye. So I think a little bit of regression at this point of the year is fine. Now, if it continues into next week against the Titans, then I would start having that Nick Mullins maybe should start warming up on the sideline conversation. And I was a little bit doom posting like that today. I'll be honest, I'll hold myself accountable to that. But looking back on it, he still had an insane amount of yards. He still had a pretty decent completion rate. Take away those 3 interceptions, which I know is pretty hard to do. He still statistically, minus those 3 interceptions and the lack of touchdowns, had a pretty good game. So I'm really, really hoping that he holds himself honest. Like I said at the beginning of this, he called himself out for the bullshit that he pulled today. And I'm really, really hoping that they take the time this week before they head to Tennessee and they watch the film. They look at what he could have done different. And I hope that maybe during practices they run the same scenarios with him so that way he can adjust and be better. But I haven't given up hope, but like I'm like the queen of optimism here, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
it was the Vikings played wonderfully without the 3 interceptions. The defense was fantastic. The offense had the most time of possession a Vikings team has had in 25 years. The game was wonderful if you could somehow get rid of those interceptions. So yeah, I'm glad I mean, they had to clean up the pre-snap penalties. Also, still aren't fixed, but it wasn't across the board as gross as it could have been. All right, Tyler, you got a Sam Darnold speech?
Yeah. First of all, before I get into it, we should be rather critical of Sam Darnold today and his performance. I know Dustin said he had 0 expectations for Sam Darnold coming into the season, and he doesn't really get low, when Sam Darnold sees ghosts and throws picks. But at the end of the day, we got to hold him to a standard. It doesn't need to be the Kirk Cousins standard. We're paying you, 40 million a year sort of thing. But we brought him in as a bridge quarterback, and he should be able to at least play within rhythm. I feel like is a fair expectation. Take care of the ball. 1 turnover is fine, but you get to 3 and they're all near the red zone. It's just, come on, you're better than that. So definitely one of the worst Sam Darnold games that I've seen this year from him. But that being said, I am higher on Sam Darnold than most. Not necessarily saying he's the future of the franchise. We all know that when JJ McCarthy is ready, he will be the guy. But I do think this fan base is rather quick to anoint JJ McCarthy as someone who's going to be ready next year. JJ McCarthy, he has that individualized plan of his where he needs to hit a certain point at his development before Kevin O'Connell is even going to risk starting him week 1 of 2025. And, the way Vikings fans treat this whole Darnold McCarthy thing is, after the season, Darnold's gone. Some team's going to pay him franchise quarterback money. There's no point in re-signing him. It's McCarthy's team. It's going to be McCarthy's team. I'm not going to argue that eventually one day it's going to be JJ McCarthy's team. I'm not sure if it's week 1 of next year. And here's why. I think the notion that Sam Darnold is going to get, let's just say Baker Mayfield kind of money is, for me, it's hard to believe. Theoretically, he should have more leverage to find a starting job in the NFL. The problem with that is that the losing teams that would be in the market for a Sam Darnold because they don't have a starting quarterback are going to draft someone. They're going to draft a Cam Ward, a Shedeur Sanders, Carson Beck. And they're not looking for a franchise guy to pay $30 million a year to. They're looking for Gardner Minshew, Jimmy Garoppolo, a bridge guy, Andy Dalton. So Sam Darnold's not getting big money from a bad team, and any good team that has the offensive infrastructure to help Sam Darnold succeed, they have a good play caller, they've got a good offensive line, weapons around him. They already have their quarterback. There's not a whole bunch of teams out there that are devoid of talent at quarterback where Sam Darnold would be QB1 while also being a playoff caliber team. So what would happen, at least I think, is Sam Darnold goes into the offseason thinking, okay, I'm going to try and be a starter somewhere. And then it turns out the free agent market for him isn't what he thought. There might be a team or two that's interested in him, but they are so devoid of talent, and they're probably drafting a quarterback anyways, that he'd feel more comfortable coming back here a year where Kevin O'Connell would say, hey, look, if we re-sign you to a 1-year deal, let's just say $15 million, you will be the starter week 1, and this is just a 1-year thing, but we think that if we bring you back for 1 more year, it'll help grow your market a bit more for the following free agency, where potentially an older quarterback on a well-established team retires. I look around the league, I don't see a team that makes sense for Sam Darnold, where Sam Darnold can succeed and be a starter. I don't see it outside of Minnesota. The reason why Baker and Geno got re-signed is because, they re-signed with the same team, same offense, so they were willing to give them that kind of money. Sam Darnold just doesn't have the same resume as a Baker Mayfield. So to me, I feel like a return to Minnesota makes sense for Sam, and for Minnesota, it makes sense because you're not forcing McCarthy to start week 1. He can develop, and when he's ready, he can take that. But time is never a bad thing for a young quarterback like McCarthy, and especially coming off an injury. The reason I'm so passionate about the Darnold thing is because I'm passionate about JJ McCarthy. I don't want him to get thrown to the wolves. So I feel like re-signing Darnold, if the money is right, to a 1-year deal is a great idea.
I think if Darnold is going to be successful and find a landing spot, it would be because Matthew Stafford retires in Los Angeles and then goes to play with McVay, or if Tua in Miami takes another concussion in the next 2 months. I think those are 2 spots where Darnold could get a nice contract and be a winner. Otherwise, Tyler, you're absolutely correct. He's just going to be doing bridge quarterback assignments indefinitely. All right, Brevan, in 3 minutes or less, give us your conclusion Darnold speech.
Yeah, the frustrating thing about Darnold is like we to a point know who he is, and the way that I work with, I guess, judging these players from my chair here in my little hole in Northern Virginia is that Sam Darnold showed us who he could be the first 4 weeks of the season, and now that he's taken that away, I had the standard set for him, and I know, like, I didn't expect him to keep that play up. It's frustrating that I know that he's capable of it, and now it's just gone, and he's been bad is being too harsh for him for the last month, but even like if you want to take the interceptions away and say like, oh, the completion percentage is okay, like the ball placement is bad. It's not Josh Dobbs about to kill people bad, but it's bad. Um, it's Sam Darnold. We always said Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins. If you can say Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins, you can say Sam Darnold is Sam Darnold. So for like Sam Darnold this year, like whatever he does, like I'm fine with it because this year was Sam Darnold. Where I do the pushback is on Sam Darnold in the future because you drafted McCarthy to be the future. If you like there you throw him to the wolves, but in the NFL nowadays, that's how you find out who your quarterback is, and there's no better situation in the NFL right now to be thrown to the wolves than the Minnesota Vikings. And this goes two ways. Sam Darnold either plays like he keeps playing, and there's no point to bring him back because we got Nick Mullins on the bench right now, bring him back for $6 million a year, or he plays well and he plays into a contract that Minnesota shouldn't even consider. So I don't know if he would get a Baker or a Geno contract, but anything more than 12, 13, 14 million is like, I'd rather just buy talent and get that around McCarthy. And then like if you really, 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 really don't want to start McCarthy week one, I really seriously I am fine starting Nick Mullins for a couple weeks. But I am of the mindset that you can throw McCarthy one. If he's not ready, like he'll be medically ready by February to do it. So it's not a question of health. It's a question of will he be prepared? I think if McCarthy was healthy, where I kind of pushed back on that, if McCarthy was healthy right now, we would have been calling for him after Darnold's game today. So why would we not be okay with starting him in September of next year? So just with the way the NFL is nowadays, I don't think there's as much of a let the rookie sit and learn. I think it's get out there, use the offseason to learn. Let's find out what you got. So, like, if they wanted to bring back Darnold in like a 10, $11 million deal and he's not like abysmal, quite frankly, I don't give a fuck what people outside of Minnesota offer Sam Darnold. Not our problem. I don't care if he doesn't get a starting job. I don't care if he leaves the NFL after he's not a Viking. Sure, he's a nice guy, but it's not the Vikings' job to offer him a fallback option. So once he's fulfilled his duties here, and he wants more than we want to give him, like 11, 12, 13, sorry.
Yeah, the thing to remember on McCarthy and why I remain steadfast that he will be the quarterback is this is a torn meniscus. This isn't Lewis Seen's leg that came out of his skin, and this isn't Darasar Hawkinson's injury. This is like a kind of a basketball injury where, like Brevan said, they're back relatively soon. It just so happened that McCarthy got the season-ending one, which we knew was going to happen on that August, was it Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever it was. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. Watch the remainder of the Lions game. Let's see. Next week, we'll be back around the same time to decompress Vikings and Titans. Hopefully, it'll be a little less sloppy. All right.
Sounds
All right.
good. I can't wait for that JJ McCarthy Super Bowl run in February since he'll be back.
I love John Pacaremo.
Later.